So we have a listener
yeah.
question. It's very special listener questions from my wife, Zoe. She used to swim a lot. She had a question for us, which is if you've been stuck in a rut of like not training consistently, how do you get back into it? She's like, it feels overwhelming to even think about getting back in the pool. How do you think about responding to that question? And I have some thoughts as well.
I did have one patch in my life when I first moved to the UK, and for 6 months I was a doctor at that stage. I worked in some of the private hospitals, 2 weeks on duty, 1 week off, and the 2 weeks on were 24/7. So you couldn't really exercise. So that was the first time in my life that I lost a bit of fitness and had to get back into it. In general, you need to think about something you want to work towards. Is there something in it that feels rewarding, that it's enjoyable? So like, what's the why behind it?
I love those. I mean, I think you've hit on the one big one is this idea, which sort of feels cliched as like, what's the why? I know so many people, and I'm the same, where if I've been in sort of a rut, I need to set a goal. I need to set something that sort of gets exciting.
So welcome back to Two Average Runners. You've got me, Alice, and my friend,
Hugh. Hi.
How are you doing today, Hugh?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Very good. It's a bank holiday here. Not the sunniest of bank holiday Mondays, but still really nice to just, when you've got a 4-day week.
Yeah.
It's just nice to have that sort of feeling like, okay.
I was thinking about that one. We don't have the early May bank holiday in the US. And it's kind of cool, right? Because you get the 2 bank holidays in May. So it's like a double, like it's the first of 2 of these weekends. It's the beginning of summer for you in some ways. That's kind of cool, actually. Kind of cool.
Yeah,
so in some
weeks.
ways, it feels like a bit of a bank holiday here because the Cocodona 250 just started today.
Wow. Okay, great. I know nothing about that.
I know. I'm happy to share more, but it sort of feels, I've got a little bit of that sort of holiday vibe.
I've never asked you this before. How long have you lived in the States for?
I moved to the States in 2009.
Okay.
17 years.
Okay.
So I've like 17, I don't think I've ever been back for over a May bank holiday. I don't think so.
And did you find the adjustment from working here to working there and having fewer holidays? The States are quite sort of renowned for, you don't have many bank holidays. You don't have that much time off. Is it quite the adjustment as compared to here in the UK where we're quite sort of lazy in comparison?
It's a good question. I think it was gradual because I did business school. So I had sort of 2 years, which were not, there was lots of hard, but it was very, like there were breaks and there were holidays and all those kind of things. I think I've always worked in, it was a little bit of a shock, but not a crazy one. And then in recent years, as I've been more entrepreneurial, haven't felt the same sort of like, oh, I only have X number of days of holiday. I don't think in any job I've really done, maybe when I worked at Bridgewater, I can't really remember, it was a bit fuzzy now, or a year, really sort of having this sort of like feeling like, oh my God, I only have X number of days to use compared to like the 30 days plus the holidays in the UK.
It's so different. Anyway, just curious about the cultural difference. Good. So give us your scores for the week on training and life, if you are up for
cool. I think we're going to do 9 and 9.
Cool.
I got nothing to complain about right now. Bounced back from my little trip away. And so actually started to, by this past weekend, feel like the running was coming good. Such as a really solid week of running. I got a bunch of early morning runs in last week with other people during the week. Often I don't always run with people, like maybe have one social run in a week. I think I got 3. I think I ran maybe 4. I definitely ran Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And they were all early starts, which was feeling quite tiring in some ways because I was like, these are runs starting at 5, which is kind of early.
Wow, yeah, that's early.
But it was like ahead of the game, got my strength in as per normal, and then had a big solo weekend. Had a big solo day on Saturday, which was largely hill repeats on a route that I really liked. So it was on trail. And then yesterday, a more sort of rolling hill trail run where I just got in a great flow. And it definitely, you have good days running, you have bad days running, you have good weeks running. This was one of those ones which, like, if you look at it through time, like you can see improvement. Like compared to how I ran this a couple of months ago, to then about a year ago to a couple of years ago, it's a pretty standard route. And so, it just felt like more effortless at that heart rate. It was just good.
Brilliant.
So that's sort of, and then it combined, they had some really fun, I don't know, but just things are fun with the family right now. We forgot to say, even though this will date us because the podcast comes out 1 week later. May the 4th be with you today, Alice.
Oh,
May
yes,
the 4th
there
be
we
with
go.
you. It's
May
Star
the
Wars
4th,
Day.
May the 4th.
Henry's wearing his Stormtrooper shirt. He wore his,
Is he? Oh, gosh, good.
You know, Henry loves Star Wars. He's kind of obsessed with the older movies, like the original trilogy. And he has lots of Star Wars Legos and these Star Wars playing cards. And we just, you know, we're always pretending that we're like, he's Darth Vader and we're the baddies or we're the goodies.
Cool. That's so cool.
So it was just a weekend of that. And then to cap it off, there was this really cool thing. Once a year in San Antonio, they have this thing called Cyclovia with an S, but it's supposed to be, and it's basically a sort of cycling festival where a sort of 2-mile stretch of one of the sort of streets, it's like a sort of a two-way, 2 lanes each side, but it's through the middle of town, lots of cross streets, etc., called Broadway. And they shut it down, and it's just people riding their bikes up and down. And they had lots of activations and like the different grocery stores and different running stores and different all sorts of things. Just like there was a fire truck there. It was just all sorts of like. So in a way, it was a very like sort of almost like a holiday thing you might expect.
Okay, cool.
And that ended up being yesterday. And so Henry had his like balance bike. And so I then didn't ride a bike. My bike, I needed to fix it up anyway, but I didn't ride my bike so I could just be more, because he sort of can go a bit all over the place to keep him, you know, because the people whizzing by, obviously. So I just walked with him and sort of jogged when he tried to like pick up the pace. But we were out there for several hours. Like he was a total champ. And obviously very ultra motivated in many ways. Early on, he's like, I want a popsicle, and they had free popsicles at one end, and then as we're going, the motivation to get to the other end was another free popsicle, so he had 2 free popsicles or lollipops, as we might say in the UK. So I was like feel very ultra motivated, you know, like we'll run for food. That was my week of running, week of training. Those
sounds
things seem to interact well. Yeah,
sounds like good fun.
How about you? How was your week? Your first full week post marathon.
First full week post marathon. So it's quite nice not having to do all the training, but I did. Yeah. So I'm actually going to give myself a 9 because I did do the recovery and I got a couple of bike sessions in. My body didn't feel too bad. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I did 2 10K runs. Mm-hmm. And I was getting the signals from my body like, yes, you did run a marathon last week.
Yeah.
So actually the hamstrings were quite tight, and the little bits of downhills, my quads were giving me some feedback that they were a little bit hammered. So it was interesting because I'd done a few bikes and not really felt too much, and then went on these runs and was like, yeah, okay. But it was so nice to be out. I really enjoyed them. I felt good. I'm feeling really motivated.
Okay, cool.
To carry on. And maybe we'll chat in a moment a little bit about that because I've had lots of sort of thoughts on and off. But yeah, I'm giving myself a 9 for training, life-wise. And I guess probably because you've got more time on your hands. So there's a little bit more thinking to do. I won't go into great detail, but you know, things are stressful at home. We've got teenagers, exams, and I'm a stepmom, and you know, making loads of mistakes along the way. So it has actually been a tough week from that side of things. But I think also because I haven't got as much training, I probably also had a lot of time to stop and ponder the meaning of life and getting a bit existential, which sometimes, you know, sometimes you think, okay, also now I need to snap out of this. So I've had a quieter week at work, quieter week training. So probably a bit more, too much time to thinking. But had a good catch up with my coach today. So yeah, maybe in a moment we chat a little bit about maybe what went wrong, what I've been thinking about, what's going to happen in the future, and just a little bit about, I guess, a bit of post-marathon blues that sets in for some people after a big event. Yeah. I'm
really curious, just before we dive into that one, it makes sense to me, the body, you know, the hamstrings, the quads, the things like that. I'm always I'm curious and fascinated. How did the nervous system feel? Did you know, once you started running, did the body want to run, or did it kind of feel like the brain was like, oh, we've just really pushed hard? I'm always fascinated how it sort of feels like mentally, more like mentally is wrong, which is sometimes the wrong thing. It's like sometimes the nervous system, like, does this body actually want to coordinate movement?
Actually seemed to be fine, because if I looked at it, I just thought, I'm not going to look at my watch. I'll just run to how I'm feeling, even if my body is a bit sore. And I held quite a good pace with quite a low heart rate. So I think nervous system wise, compared to how I felt in the past, where it's actually just like, well, you know, that feeling when Dale, my boyfriend partner, describes it as like running through treacle. It's just a lot of effort. I didn't have that. I was a bit sore and a bit stiff, but kind of felt form-wise, coordination-wise quite good, and actually just enjoyed it. So that I thought was a good sign. But I was more sore than I was expecting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
I
good.
think there's something weird. There's something special about a marathon soreness because you're running so fast, actually super fast for quite a decent time, that it's like a different soreness from like running like even 100-mile, which just feels like it's just a different. Sometimes there are particular things like the feet might feel sore or other stuff. But like in terms of just like, oh my God, I can sometimes feel broken after a marathon. That's kind of, to be able to be excited to get back to running, that's kind of cool. So how should we dive into this today? You want to talk about this sort of like post-race blues, the sort of, as you've sort of been, I think it's such a natural point. Like you do a big race, you've trained really hard. It was a focus. It had a lot built into it for you because it was coming back from stress fractures. It was, you had taken the pressure off from it being like having to achieve everything race. But you actually ran with great purpose and you like really went for it and you sort of had a great day and pushed through some tough stuff and then it's done. And then, so how is it feeling now? What does that reflection look like?
Look, if I'm totally honest with you, everybody wants you to, and you feel like you should be really quite pleased. You've made a return from injury. You've got a PB. But if I'm really honest, and actually I saw a friend of mine yesterday for a walk and she's quite a lot like me. And she said, that was a bit rubbish for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I felt really quite seen.
Yeah.
And I allowed myself to just have a conversation to say, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
I am actually disappointed. And it's okay to be disappointed, and had a lot of questions for myself. Was it fitness? What was it? Why has it happened twice that between 10 and 15 kilometers I just lose power and it doesn't feel like a fitness thing? And the reason I'm kind of harping on about it is because I don't want it to happen again, because it's actually really unpleasant to basically bonk at 10 kilometers, 12 kilometers, and then absolutely have to hack it through the rest of it. So I think there's been something in it, and you mentioned nervous system earlier, that I think may be linked to that. But so I did spend quite a bit of this week just feeling, I never got the thought that I'd want to stop or take a break, but then have some sort of hard conversations with myself. What is it that's getting in the way of me actually having a great race? Am I getting old? I know we had a listener question from somebody before who said, as you're a bit older, you're wondering, what are you capable of? You're waiting for, is this the time that I really start slowing down, or do I still have room for improvement? It's all of these things. Have I been overrating my performance in training? So all of these questions you're asking yourself, that's kind of what's been going on for me. I don't know how you are after a big race.
It so often depends on the race, exactly. But yeah, no, I've done some races. Like I still remember, and I think I was in a particular place in 2017 when I got my best time so far at Leadville, but I was so disappointed. And I really don't think I was running from a great place back then in terms of, so that was like at the extreme of being disappointed. But I've had ones then since where it's like, you sort of, you do look at like what could have gone better and these things, particularly when something like didn't go quite right and you haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
There's something that's kind of cool to kind of like, okay, I want to like figure that out now. But there is something that's like, oh, I just haven't pulled it all together. And I think sometimes the part of the crazy thing is sometimes you never pull it all together, right? It's like, which is kind of a bit crazy when you think about it. I think it's so rare that we ever have like perfect days. And actually, ironically, sometimes it's like one of those first things. Like I think your first marathon at Valencia was almost a perfect day, right? It's just weird how that sometimes happens. So yeah, I kind of have a lot of empathy and, for you. And I think this like post-race feeling of like, do I want to go and do that all again? Do I want to do the same thing again? Am I excited to go and keep chipping away at that particular piece of the goal? Like it's an interesting existential moment.
Yeah, it is. I've been sort of best friends with Claude AI this week and had a good chat with my coach. So I'm feeling a bit more, I'm not done yet. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it did leave me asking some questions like, if you couldn't run, what would you do? I just think I would find something else that's similar. So if I couldn't run because it was something that happened to me, I think I would, whether I was, I'm just, it sounds a bit lame, but if I was in a wheelchair, I'd find something that I could do to push myself. I feel like it's a big part of who I am. Because say my mum will ask me, like, can't you just run and just not have a watch, not go on Strava, just run a few times a week? just do it for that. And I think it's just built into me that at the moment in my life, one of the things that gives me I've got something I'm working towards, I'm trying to see if I can improve, is running. And I'm not ready to change that yet. And I think that's good. I think that's fine. I see loads of people. There's a woman that I follow who's American. I think her name is Coach Megan. I think she's similar age to me. And she's always posting how actually women at this age, you can still get better. You can still improve. You have to be intentional about it. So by the end of the week, I'm feeling kind of like, no, it's not an age thing. This is just, I'm not experienced and there's loads of room for improvement and I'm not running out of time. I keep thinking, I'm running out of time, but actually I've kind of changed my thought on that a bit this week.
It's really interesting. It does make you, I think, slightly like want to think and reflect and adjust. Like a couple of things have been really popping into my mind right now that were a bit out of left field. Like, the big part is the move back. It's going slower. Not even sure how the time is going to work for that race in July. But there's a part of me that's like, that race was sort of going to be sort of a celebration if we made it back because it's like easy and local, but it's not that scary, that race. I've already done it once. And if I went, I'd then be wanting to go to improve. And if I didn't improve, what would that say? It's sort of like almost doing it to sort of to get an improvement versus like to do the thing. And I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because it's a book I'm reading right now about the guy who created the Barkley Marathons, right? And who created this idea of the backyard ultra. But I've got this thing in my mind a bit about this backyard ultra. Between that and Cocodona of, 250, like 250 miles. And there's something where the backyard ultra, it's that idea you run sort of 4.16 miles on the hour every hour and keep going. And so most people will finish early on. We finish it in 40 minutes, right? 40 to 45 minutes. And then you got 15 minutes, 20 minutes to eat, sit down. As it goes through the night, you take power naps.
Have a sleep. Yeah.
Have a sleep. So you're trying to manage that.
Go to the loo.
And these people go to the loo and people will eat, obviously fuel, rest, just maybe massage things out, phone or whatever. And what's really interesting is two things you said there, the people who are really good at it are actually quite old. They're late 40s or early 50s are the people who are sort of winning these backyard ultras. And in a way, it's less about physical performance, but this
mental.
You have to be able to keep going, but it's the mental component that's almost bigger. Yeah. And so
I love the sound of one of those, honestly. I think because of that mental component, I definitely want to do something like that just to see.
Yeah. And part of me, I know this sounds funny. I was starting to look on online and sort of peruse. And there were some of these ones where they're clearly a big event with lots of people, right? There's, And in those ones they're often going, I think they're almost going 3 or 4 days, right? So that's crazy. But then there are ones you hear about more where it's a local event where there's 30, 40 people and it might go a day and a half because remember, the only way they go really long is you need 2 people. And so there's a very common thing. I don't know I thought it was fascinating when we think about this, right? This is a real digression on all podcasts, right? But it's in a backyard ultra, there's one winner. Yeah. Everyone else is a DNF. Right? Yeah, everyone else is DNF because everyone else DNF. But in when they show the results, they do this really interesting thing particularly on Biggs, which is Lazarus Legs or Gary Cantrell's website, which is the sort of world championships of it. They highlight the winner. And then they call it the assist. So it's the person that came second because the assist is the guy who drove the winner to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then if you didn't have so that's why sometimes if everyone else drops out, you might be done in 10 hours and you might be able to go for 50 hours. So there's this weird thing about you have 2 people who sort of take each other to the brink. But there was something about, I suddenly was well, I'd kind of like to go to sort of more of your sort of, imagine your average sort of Battersea Park run. Yeah. Or right, not even sort of the Battersea half, which is getting a bit which was the one you got, which was the one you had the result in recently that we talked about.
When I came third, but didn't come third.
Third, but you weren't sure.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. It was whatever it's called, Queen Elizabeth Park or
sure. So it's one of those, which London, is we're not talking London Marathon here. We're not even talking some elite half marathon, but it's a pretty local, but it could. So the fact that you
those run through events,
you run through, and so imagine that kind of field in a backyard.
Yeah.
It's I'm kind of interested because it's I don't know, but I think that Like when I think about our running group and like the people, like I went out and ran on the weekend and I ran 22 miles of 5,000 feet of vertical, pretty much on the same sort of stretch. Like I was running in circles and going up and down these repeats. And there are people who are way faster and I think fitter than me in my run group who post something like, ouch, that elevation. You can actually generally sense that they're like, oh, I would not want to do that. And it's one of those ones that's like, I'm really fascinated by like, I don't know if I have the mental thing, but I think that my mental could overcome like maybe some physical, not limitation, but like maybe I don't have that same capacity. Because again, it's like, I mean, it gets tough at some point when you're so tired to get the 4 miles done. But I think it's almost as, I think the battle is more like from your chair back to the corral. Like you have to be in this square when the bell goes, and then the bell goes and then everyone leaves the square, the corral, right? And it's getting in, and they say the hardest part of it is getting from into the corral each lap.
Because
That's the hardest thing.
Also imagining that as you get more and more delirious, sleep deprived, you're in serious pain, but then your decision making, this mental toughness that we can sit here and say, I think I could push through. But what decisions do you make in that state?
Exactly.
And kind of, I would really love to do that just to see how I would be. I'm curious. It's like a curiosity thing for me.
A real curiosity, right? And it's kind of fun. I like the idea of doing it with like, your local club of 30, 40 people you sort of know, like this Hippie Hill challenge. I was like, I would doing that with that group, because like I heard someone say like, I'm reading this book about Laz. And it said like they're describing one of the world championships at Big's backyard. And there's like 75 competitors. And there's some comment about it that like at the beginning of that, there's a belief that 60 of them could win. Was like at an international marathon, there's like 4, right? Like a London marathon, there were only 4 people who were really going to win on the day. And it's so, and again, there's an elite field of like 75 people probably at London Marathon, but there's like, and so this idea that like it really could have a lot more both jeopardy and uncertainty. So anyway, for some reason, I don't know how we got off on that tangent. That's sort of,
well, maybe we need to set one up in Wales when you come back.
Well, I was thinking about that, and actually, it's a brilliant one. And you know what? This is fascinating. Okay, so I'm on the website and I'm looking. So Big's Backyard is famous that it has what it calls like silver ticket races. So if you win one of these silver ticket races, you get to go to the sort of world championship, the main one. And then there are all these other, I think because Laz came up with the backyard concept, a lot of races sort of like affiliate with it. So on his website, there's a list. So I'm looking for the one, search UK. There's a list come out there. There's one in Wales, in Crickhowell. Okay. Halfway between my mum and my sister's place. Perfect. So I look at that and they had one that it was last done in September. Okay, great. And I think the winner was 26 or 30 laps, right? So that's 26 or 30 hours. My goal in anyone, if I did one of these ones, I'd want to go through a full day, 24 hours.
Yeah,
that's 100
more than 24,
miles.
You've got to do that. So
you made it through 100 miles at that point. And in my mind, it would be like, could you go through 150 miles or 200 miles? Like, I don't know about the whole 400 miles. Like, but like 200, like you get it through one night. Are you getting through, getting close to going through sort of like a second night or something like that? So I'm looking at that and I'm like, that feels sort of achievable, Alice. That sort of and I like this idea with the backyard that you set up your own little like camp, like your own little tent.
Yeah, you got your physio and you got your.
And your parents, like Henry, could be running around. They could go home to sleep. They could come back. Like it sort of feels like no one's driving through backcountry roads. No one's racing through London trying to catch you at different like viewing points. And then you know what? I was looking at it and it had the thing for this year, and it was called Backyard Ultra 12 hours. And I'm like, what are you talking about? 12 hours. And then it says, for the first 11 laps, it's every hour on the hour. And the last lap, the 12th lap is the final lap and it's whoever finishes first. And then it's done. And I'm like, that's not a backyard ultra. Like, that's just not the promise. Don't give me that shit. Like, that's a 12-hour race. Fine. Do a 12-hour race. I don't care. But it was like.
And that's basically who can sprint the hardest.
In the 12th, I said, it's a cool race. It's a different race. It's a different race. Who can who can be this? You're right. Who can sprint in the 12th hour of a race? Pretty cool idea. It's just not a backyard. And anyway, so it's just funny. So yeah, maybe we do have to set it up.
Or maybe we both need to do it at the same time.
I know. Exactly. Wouldn't that be fun? And again, wouldn't it? It could be. It's just sort of. It's a really fun. It's really, I've known about these things for a long time. It's never really caught my attention. And I've had a few friends, I almost got roped in to do one about 6 months ago. And I kind of wish I'd done it now. But a few friends have sort of said that, like, I think you'd be kind of good at this one because you're just kind of dumb and like stubborn. And like, I can, it's sort of like, it's that normalizes, I think it's normalizing performance with some mental, and who knows?
Yes, exactly. Now, there's one years ago, which I used to like the look of. It's a little bit different, but I think it's a 24-hour race, and it's you either on your own. What distance can you cover? It's also a loop. So you come in and out of your station, or you do it with like a group, which I thought was quite cool, like a relay. So you and one other person, and then you kind of come up with a strategy and how far can you run? How many laps can you do in that time? That also I quite like the idea of, because that's, you're doing it with somebody. It's in a team. It's a bit of strategy. You're going to push quite hard, but how you're going to play it, you probably have your team with you. So yeah, those kind of things. I
like that.
We should be, I think I just like that mental component of it.
Me too.
And that is very different to like trying to get a certain time in a marathon per se. That's a different kind of a thing, or fast 10K or something like that. So yeah, I like that. Appeals to me definitely.
Cool. Well, maybe we have to see. Maybe there'll be the 2 average runner backyard ultra.
Yeah, let's have a look. Let's have a look.
And you can only apply if you're an average runner like us.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like non-elites are not allowed. Sorry, elites are not allowed, I should say. But isn't it kind of cool? It gets you, how do you, like, maybe I'll put this on you. How do you compare this? Because like you're in sort of like prime marathoning phase of your sort of running career, which is like you're getting good times, because let's be clear, those are great times that you're getting. You see the potential of like a sub 3 hour as a female is like super impressive time. You can see it, you can sort of taste it, it's kind of there. You are getting the improvement. It's non-linear. How do you like compare that? Like when you think about like this, like backyard ultra, like they're so different.
Yeah, I guess I'm in the space. And I think before I move on to anything else, I feel like I do want to get that, say, okay, I feel like I've achieved. So I know that people will say, oh, if you're going to do 258, you're going to want 255 and then you'll want 250. But I think that feels very, there's a formula. So you try and figure out, okay, there's a certain way that your week should look. We all know that there's certain things you do to push up your threshold. There's certain things around fueling. There's a lot of science, I think, to it. Yes, there's talent, but there's also just time on the road. There's lots of sort of factors that you can look at. You can get quite geeky and nerdy about it. I think, I don't know, but I am picturing these backyard ultra ones, or these things that are really not that many people are going to do it. There must be a massive mental component to it. How you handle pain, how you handle pressure and stress, how badly do you want something? What are you prepared to risk to keep going? I think there's also that must be a lot of psychology when you're running alongside somebody. So I heard two guys on a podcast talking recently about, it was very much a guy thing, I think, but I've got competitive female friends. But let's say you're at the track with your mate and you're doing really hard intervals and you are close to like saying, okay, I can't do it. Like I need a longer break. I need a longer recovery, or I can't hold the pace. But just before you say, okay, like I need a break, the other guy says, this is too much for me. And then you can be like, oh, okay, don't worry. You were nearly there, but he just went first. Okay. Yeah. So I think that there's that sort of component in these things where you don't know if the guy next to you is breaking or not. How much is in the body language? I think it's just fascinating because there's that whole other dynamic, which when you're in a marathon with 66,000 people, I mean, you might have some people that you're sort of competing against, but really it is just you trying to, pull the different levers that physiology wise, etc., to kind of get where you want to get to, if that makes sense.
It really does make sense. I think that's a really interesting thing about the backyard stuff is that people really do. In that one, you're seeing your competitors all the time. Yeah. So even more so, if you don't want to show that you're hurting and about to crack, because you're like, who's going to start the next lap? Is everyone going to start the next leg? And so you're trying to keep that inside and project that like, I'm confident I've got another 10 hours of this in me kind of.
There's a bit of a game, I'm sure.
It's a bit of a game. Yeah, a bit of a game.
But like boxing or something like that, I'm imagining when they go to their corners and they're sort of checking out how
pep
I'm
talks.
imagining, I know nothing about boxing.
No, I know nothing about boxing. So it's kind of interesting. And I think it's an interesting, they're very different, but there's a similar thing here. So I started thinking with Cocodona on, started today, it's live streamed for 115 hours. Like all week, there's a live stream. They've got drone cameras. They've got these guys in the studio commenting, and it's cool. They cover the front of the field, but their whole thing is they live stream till the final finisher, right?
So is it a trail race?
It's a trail race, point to point. In Arizona, it's 250 miles, I think 253.
So forgive me here, does that mean it's very deserty and very hot? Like what is it? What
it is very desert. There is a lot of desert, but it goes through different climates. So it starts, I think, in sort of the Sonoran Desert, and then it goes over, there's a set of mountains called the Bradshaws, which it gets up a little higher. Then it goes through Sedona, which I think you mentioned, we talked earlier, like Sedona is like this beautiful red rocks, like very sort of classic deserty, canyonsy. Then it goes into this like ponderosa pine forest, like one of the biggest ones in the world. So it's like super foresty and ends up in Flagstaff. Now Flagstaff's kind of high. I think it's like 7,000 feet.
I think elites will go and train there, don't they?
Yeah, run in Mecca because of the sort of like altitude. And it's also really close to the Grand Canyon where like trail runners will go to the Grand Canyon to like practice, like, because it's so amazing to go down there and back up and that kind of thing. So there's something about it that like, it's not the hardest race in terms of it's not the hottest race. It has about, I think, 38,000 feet of vertical, which over 250 miles is like not a ton. Like that
sounds like a lot.
It sounds like a lot, but I think there's like 33,000 vertical in UTMB in 100 miles. And this is 2.5 times the length. So it's not, there are some big climbs, a different one. There's a big one right by the end, I think. But there's this idea, which is sort of like, and again, I would contrast this quite differently to the Backyard Ultra, that you're on a quest, right? You're on a mission, right? It's an expedition. It's like you start in one place and you're trying to get somewhere else. And there's a long way to go along the way. And like, this one's crazy. I think on the first day, there's like a section, I think like 30 miles without where you don't see your crew. And there's like a pretty long stretch. Maybe there's a 30-mile stretch between aid stations where everyone's got to carry 4 liters of water because it's like, it's like, sort of mandatory. There's like a long section. There's just something that's like, there's a self-sufficiency. There's a sort of like, it's not some pointless loop, right? It's not some weird like route through London. It's like you're starting here and you're trying to go to there along this, sort of ideally some sort of aesthetic or historical or like sort of like, it might not, it's not necessarily a straight line, but it is an adventure. And there's something there that's sort of speaking to me, Alice. There's sort of this idea there. I've run 100 miles and like, I don't take that lightly, but it's like, I know I can run 100 miles. Like, I was like, I don't know if I can run 250 miles, Alice.
That's crazy.
I don't know. It's
you definitely love these sort of adventures and the whole idea, sort of the navigation and all of that stuff. It captures you.
I do like that. I do. It does sort of capture me. And then there's different parts where like Cocodona is so well done that it's like there isn't real navigation to worry about. It's kit to worry about because it's going to be hot. And last year they had a lot of stormy weather, which in the desert gets like crazy rains and crazy muddy. But it's like there's some part of me is excited by logistics. And then that's where part of me is like, I want to do one of these backyards. It's like, take your cooler, take your chair, take a mat to lie on, you got a bunch of food and you're kind of like done. Like it's not that complicated, versus like, okay, I've got this aid station and what do I need there? And you have all these things planned for all the stuff. I sort of get excited about that. And then part of me is like, oh, it sounds like a lot of work. It's like a lot of planning, Anyway, I don't know where this ramble's really going. Alice, I'm going to put this to you. We're going to put, you can run a marathon. You've done it. You've got this big challenge about like, can you run a faster marathon? Can you do more perform? Can you run a better executed marathon? Because all these things. What's the thing that sort of like scares you as running? Like maybe it scares you to try to run that fast. I mean, that's kind of scary as well.
Actually, I think I was talking to my coach earlier. We're thinking about sort of ways forward and also thinking about what is actually going on. So yes, I know I can run a marathon, but I always knew that because that's not what it is. I mean, I think we covered it in the why we run is I am interested to see how quick I can be, even though I'm older and have sort of only got into it. I mean, I've always run a lot. We've covered all that. But what scares me, I think that I am not somebody who, from a running point of view, has ever really fully emptied the tank, left it all out there, and kind of full send it to the point where you may blow up. I'm very much, even in life, I'm always the person who, like, I'm thinking, and this may not be what's happening, but I think, oh, people might underestimate me. But I'm going to sit on your heels. And then just as you are getting tired and you can't, then I'm going to still be there. Like, I'm just coasting close to where I'm pushing. And then at the end, when everyone else is tired, I'm still going and I can sort of pick it up. That's sort of a little bit more my mentality. So, okay, I'll be quiet and I'll sit in the back, but actually watch me because I'm coming for you. That's kind of how I am. But I am probably most scared of like a full send 5 or 10K. I think, because I think there's also something in the serious level of discomfort. And can I push through it, or do I kind of panic? Because I think that's also a bit of what's happening in the marathon. Do I kind of panic and my brain is like a bit anxious, like I don't know yet what happens. And then there's the bit of you might actually just be rubbish.
Yeah.
So I actually almost wonder, and my coach and I were talking about this earlier, really trying to get some faster 5 and 10Ks over the summer. And actually seeing what that level of pain, what's that pain like? I know I'm mentally tough. I know I can take pain, but there's something also about doing it while you're running that's terrifying me a little bit.
I know that is kind of funny. And I've said this as well, like 5Ks are horrible. Like that's really uncomfortable. I mean, it does end up being over before you know it, but it's really, I like the idea of doing those to really test, to put yourself in somewhere really uncomfortable in its own way. And I was talking about this with a friend who I was running with on Friday, is like, I wish there were more like team races and races like this, races where you're on a team. And I love this idea of cross-country scoring. Do you know what cross-country scoring is?
No.
So in a typical cross-country, certainly in the US, I think the UK is pretty similar. And certainly there's even cross-country world championships and things like that. But really at least in the US for high school and college, cross-country is primarily a team sport. So you might have like 7 runners on a team. I think I might be off here. I'm not going to be tight on the specifics. And I think it's like the top 5 score, something like that. And the way they score them is you add up everyone's position that they finish. So someone came first and someone came fifth and someone came 23rd. I think you did
mention that before.
And you add it up and the lowest score wins the team.
Okay.
So usually they have an individual competition. So you might have someone who is like amazingly good and they're going for like to be the national champion. But often the winning team won't have the person who wins. It's like the mixture of consistency. But what's cool about that in my mind is that like you could be in 47th place and battling. And if you make it to 43rd, that might make the difference with your team winning or losing. And I think that's really cool. Because it's like, imagine if you're not, to your point about like, could you battle? Could you really, imagine you're not having the best day. But the fact that it's like, there's this mix of like, we're doing the marathon, you're still trying to get the best out. You talked about your lull in London. You had the sort of power failure, sort of in that miles 10 to 15K or whatever. But then you picked it up at the end. You sort of dug deep but you're doing that sort of for you, which is awesome. It's like, imagine like you're doing it, like I'm not having the race. I'm not even, it's like, I'm going to run 3:30. But like, if you could run 3:25 and make it 5 more places for your team. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like I'm sort of really intrigued about this. So imagine if this series you did, this 5 and 10K of things, imagine if you could also like each race you are fighting for whatever, like every position is worth a battle, even if it's like 7th to 6th or like 103rd to 102nd. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I think still for me, I'm doing this for me, and I want to see.
So you're like, nope, that's cool, but like, I'm going to go and put myself to the well.
I'm being honest because I think there's plenty of people the same as me who still
I think it's fair.
Want to see for them how quick they can get. Yeah. And that's kind of like that's why I got into actually not just running for hours and hours on end and going to the gym for hours and hours on end. Like I need a purpose that is not just like self-flagellation or kind of, becoming almost addictive in a way. I'm doing this because I want to see if I can perform.
Yeah.
But you put your neck on the line when you do that, because if you don't, then it's like saying to yourself, well, maybe I've had to say after London, was that pace too hot? Am I not fit enough? What is the issue? Ask myself some of these hard questions. So for me, I'm all for the team stuff, but at the end of the day, I want to see for me, if I really go for it, what happens.
Yeah.
I think I still feel like I need to explore it.
So one thing, you'd shared, so you're in this sort of post-marathon reflection, learning, a little bit of triaging, trying to make sense of. You've got the slightly, you're obviously recovering. You also mentioned that your partner is actually going to take a little break from running, right?
Yeah.
Whereas
so
you're not.
So we spoke, in my house, we both are runners. Dale has run way more than me. I think he's done 30 marathons, lots of ultras, trails. He's really experienced. At the end of a marathon, I'm the person at the finish line saying, okay, cool, sign me up for the next one, even if it was rubbish. Exactly. I'm like, I want to go again because I want to do better. He's like, forget it, never running again. And it goes on for quite a while. So he's like, no, I'm not running for a while. He's done nothing exercise-wise this week apart from walk the dog. I'm already on the call with the coach. He's the same coach as me. What's next? What are the next races? What are we working on? Yes. He's like, not interested. And it'll probably sort of come back later, but it's we just wired differently. So it's interesting just seeing the different mindsets that play in our house.
It's interesting. And I sort of have some empathy for that, because I think it's there is some difference there. One of the things I think you and I are in, sort of quite similar right now is we want to progress. It's this journey of progression, and we believe that our potential is way bigger than what we're expressing right now. Potentially untapped, unlimited, right? In terms of how you can keep, and we ask the questions like, how long can we keep, we're fighting age, but I think we both have a lot of, even at speed, I certainly feel like there's a lot I can get faster even as I age.
Exactly.
Before you start to say mentally and go backyards or go longer and longer, which is what everyone does anyway. And I just want to keep sort of going and getting better. But it wasn't always there. I signed up for these crazy things and then did them and then took a year or two off. And then I never really any progress I'd made, I went back down to some baseline. And then next time I did, I got to come all the way back up again. Versus in the recent years, I really no, I'm going to keep just keep building year over year. Have you always been the kind of build over build, or did you ever have the sort of high low kind of extremes?
Well, I guess I've only really been doing running like this for 18 months.
Okay.
It's not even 2 years. Maybe with my coach. I've been with my coach for 2 years. So I've just stayed with it and kept going because I haven't, I'm still I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
I've had a DNF and I had a good one and then a DNF and then 2 where I've just tanked at 10 to 15 Ks. And why is this so hard? I need to figure out what's going wrong. So no, I haven't quite, and I've always pushed myself quite hard physically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think I've ever had a time of not being fit.
Okay. Really interesting.
Or having to sort of come back, So, which is a bit different, I think, to quite a few people. And that's not always a good thing. I think it would be good if I struggled with over-exercise, won't go into great detail here, but definitely, and I think it's no surprise I'm somebody who's had stress fractures. I'm almost need a coach. I can also sometimes say, no, now you need to drop the mileage. Now you need to take a break, etc.
Well, I just know that
kind of my wiring.
I think it's good to have a little pause. I think in what we're doing, having big off seasons just does reset you. If you're trying to just build over time and you've got long-term goals, as in you're not trying to win this year as much as keep getting better and better, over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, then taking time off really kind of just, it's tough. And even this year I took probably, it ended up being sort of 6 weeks of lower training. I took a couple of weeks off and did more biking. And then I started to focus, sort of build back. I got injured when I overdid it on the strength. So that put me back another few weeks, then started to ease back in and then got back to training. And now it's kind of so a couple of months in, I finally feel back sort of almost back to when I was sort of mid build for my last year. It's sort of it's clicking. It's not hard to get out the door anymore. You have better and worse days, but it's not feeling what a slog. But I still remember, and I think this is a good segue, I'd taken a year off. In 2022, I did that Beacons Way 100. and then basically took time off, had Henry, and it was sort of like almost like it was almost a year and a half, and then it's like I need to get back in to do something. And it's just so hard coming back. So let's, I think this
we've
is
got
good.
some
Should we
listeners'
segue?
questions, yeah?
I think we do. So we have a listener
yeah.
question. It's a very special listener question. It's actually from my wife, Zoe. And she is, she was a swimmer. She used to swim a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up and in high school, and she played water polo. So that was a big, her team sport of swimming. And she had a question for us, which is basically when you if you've been stuck in a rut of like not sort of training consistently, in her case, like not swimming, how do you get back into it? Like, how do you even, because she's like, it feels overwhelming to sort of even think about getting back in the pool and how hard it is and the work and those things. And so I'm sort of curious. I mean, in some ways, you sort of said that you haven't had those big sort of layoffs, but like, how do you think about responding to that question? And I obviously have some thoughts as well.
Yeah. Look, for me, I've mostly in my life when I've not exercised is either because of injury or illness. I'm kind of been forced to, and then had to get back into it. I did have one patch in my life when I first moved to the UK, and for 6 months I was a doctor at that stage. I worked in some of the private hospitals, 2 weeks on duty, 1 week off, and the 2 weeks on were 24/7. So you couldn't really exercise. So that was probably the first time in my life that I lost a bit of fitness and had to get back into it. But I'm just thinking in general, I would say you either need to think about is there something you want to work towards?
Mm-hmm.
So is there like, I want to take part in some sort of swimming event. I've got a client who lives in Australia and she's in some sort of outdoor swimming thing, and there's a goal she's working towards. She came back from traumatic brain injury and she's getting her fitness back. And swimming is something she used to enjoy. So because she enjoyed it and she's going to do it with her friends. So there's kind of a purpose and a why. They're doing some long outdoor swim. So there for her, she sort of got back into it that way. So is there something in it that feels rewarding, that you're with your friends, that it's enjoyable, that you're working towards something? What is it that is what's the why behind it? If it's just, I'm not fit, I'm feeling lazy, I'm tired, and I need to do this, I think that's probably the worst sort of motivation. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think the sort of just doing it because I need to, because that's what I should be doing is not the way in. It's something, it's finding. And then I think, just to say before you jump in, it's about making it accessible. Like what is something that's, that is just going to be half an hour, rather than trying to aim for an hour, what is actually doable for you at this current, and that will be enjoyable, that will feel good, that there will be some sort of, that before you even head out the door, you're thinking, I do actually want to do it. It's very difficult to push yourself when you don't feel like it.
I love those. I mean, I think you've hit on the one big one is this idea, which sort of feels cliched as like, what's the why? I know so many people, and I'm the same, where if I've been in sort of a rut, I need to set a goal. I need to set something that sort of gets exciting. And so that's the option one, is to sort of set some sort of goal or something. And it could be small, so to speak, or it could be big, right? In the sense, like this is where this is the problem. Like Zoe asked me as well. This is the sort of follow-up question, which we'll come to. But like, would I ever do some swimming? And I think for me, there's two pieces which are going to tie into this one. But if it's the goal thing, for me, it would have to be something stupid. Like I'd want to swim across the channel. Like it would be absurd, right? It's like, of course, but and for me, actually, it's like, it would be the more logical thing would be like the triathlon, right?
Yeah.
Would be and of course for me, it would have to be an Ironman if I ever did. Like,
that's really on my goal list. Like once I've done like a sub threes, I'm thinking maybe something will be there's some ultras on my list, but I want to do an Ironman at some stage.
And so I think that could be good, because I know that like if I were ever doing something like an Ironman, the swimming will be the weakest, the toughest. 2.4 miles, such a long way to swim.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I could also see where for me, it would be like, maybe it's not swimming across the English Channel. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but it's like swimming across the Severn estuary. Or like, I'm sure there's like there's probably a cool race like in some lake in Wales, or even like Llangors Lake, which is near my mum's. Maybe there's a race there where you go from one end of the lake to that. Like, I feel like for me, there would be something that would like, the idea of swimming across that lake would be quite scary for me. It's quite a long swim. I don't even know how long. It's probably less than 2.4 miles to be fit, but it's like, there's something like across a whole lake. I feel like for me, like having this sort of something that sort of it becomes like this forcing mechanism, that's something to sort of index on is what usually gets me to, and a side note, okay.
But so I was just thinking, in Zoe's case, if swimming was a thing that she was good at and enjoyed, like my client that I was thinking about now, I know in my client's mind, she had this thing that number one, there was an event. Number two, it was with friends. Yes. And number three, she knows how she used to swim. So she has a bit of an index, a point in her mind to say, I used to be able to do this distance freestyle. So it'd be quite cool to see how close to that I can get again. And because she enjoyed it swimming, so there were lots of reasons that it was the obvious choice to start building confidence again. And to go and to sort of get in the pool and get it done, even if you're not really feeling it that day, and kind of getting out of that rut. So I think, I don't know, maybe Zoe, what is it that she used to enjoy about swimming? Is it doing it with other people, like she suggested with you? Like, could that be fun? Or is there something about her performance that she would want to look at? Like, what is the thing that would make it, apart from, I have to swim 3 times a week?
Yeah. So what I love that, and I think that was the second thing I was thinking, it's like, if the goal is maybe not the biggest thing or whatever, the other thing when the goal is people. So I love that idea of friends. I think for her, and I feel she might even mention it, there is this whole concept of a masters swim team, like a masters group where like, sort of like, it's like our equivalent of a run club. Yeah. And so I think the idea is something where you can go, you got other people to encourage you. It could be some friends. I think that can be great. For some, I recognize that like you invite comparison, right? And we've even said that. We know all the friends who always say, "Oh, I'll join you. I'm going to get fit and then join the run club." We're like, no, just come to the run club. Come to start running with us, and you'll get used to that. So like, so and I think if you can overcome that, but the masters one, I think the social is a pretty interesting one as well, because I think that I have a hunch. I need to chat with her a bit more about it. It's like Zoe knows what she could swim, and that may be a barrier. Like, I'm not as fast. I'm not as competent as I was. And sometimes training, going straight to a club might sort of go against that. Maybe going with friends, like, she's always going to be a better swimmer than me. I don't care. Like, however, like wherever she's at, like, she's always going to be like way better swimming than me. So I think that idea, like you said, of doing it with friends is a really cool one. I also think what could be kind of interesting is that pattern interruption, right? So this is like a common one, like in running, if you did used to run on roads, or you used to remember, you remember sort of like you ran track at school and you sort of had a break, you were burnt out, or you come back later, you come back and you don't come back to the roads, you come back to the trail. Like no one's caring how fast you run on the trail. And it's like ups and downs and you stop for snacks and all that kind of things. I think with maybe swimming, it could also be, which I actually know is not going to work for Zoe because she doesn't like as cold water necessarily, but it's like wild swimming is huge in Wales, where people go and swim in these lakes or in the rivers. And again, that one, it's like, it's not doing 25-meter laps where you're sort of, I only did how much time did it take me to do the lap? And like, how many laps do you do in an hour? It's like, no, you swam in this lake for an hour or for 30 minutes. So I think I like those ideas about the friends. And what was the third one you said? There was a third one, sort of comparing. So you might be excited about like, doing something sort of like working back towards a place you might have been before. And that might, as you start to see your trajectory, that could be encouraging.
Yeah. Whatever it is for Zoe, whoever's in this similar position, like why am I even thinking about it? What does it mean for me? Why is it important? And kind of thinking about it with that lens.
Yeah, I love that. She sort of had there's a sort of a second part of that question, which I think segues sort of nicely. And she was kind of saying like, her question was sort of like, would you ever swim for cross training? Would you come and swim with me? And sort of the question for us, sort of the more broader question, like, how do we think about like what we do for cross training and doing other sports? So what do you like? How do you have you ever swim? Does swimming ever on your radar? How do you think about
I'm South African. I grew up in South Africa. We all swam. I did quite a lot of swimming as a kid.
Okay.
So I'm a pretty competent swimmer, but I'm not really built like a swimmer. My dad swims, the mad dad that we mentioned last week. I mean, he surfs, he swims, he paddles. He actually goes to swim club still. 2-3 times a week. Very sociable, chats the coach. They've got all different abilities. They've got the really fast guys some of the guys that kind of more my era, who he knows their parents, their dads, like he's friends with their dads, and he sees them in the fast lane and he's a few lanes down, but he still goes and likes to see how he's doing. And he's kind of quite nosy and chats to everybody. And he likes it because he's talking to older people, younger people. It's a big sociable thing, and he's working on his fitness, and he's mad. So he does, loads of exercise. So for me, I have often swum. I have, when I've been injured, swum in the last few years. And I mean, as a girl, and other women listening will tell you, if you've got blonde hair or hair extensions, then sometimes you don't want to swim because your hairdresser says, why is your hair gone this strange color? So there's all the cosmetic decisions.
Okay. Important.
I actually think with cross training, a lot of it, yes, it is actually. I think a lot of it is also on ease.
Yeah.
So I like biking. Now, when I've done cross training in the past, and I've had to, you want to, when you're biking, actually be on a watt bike or proper bike if you're going to use it, not one of these some gyms have got there's like a hotel gym kind of bike. Like that's not really going to do it. So in the past, I've been a member of a gym. We've had the really great bikes, but you still got to trek over to the gym and set it up. Now I've got the Zwift set up at home because I would be happy to have a bike, but I live in London. Yeah. So number one, storage of the bike. Number two, this friend that I met up with yesterday, who's a runner, and she's got stress fracture at the moment. She's now biking and swimming, and she was just telling me what she's been spending on all the bike paraphernalia, and it's crazy money. So there's a lot of expense there. And there's the kind of getting killed on the roads here in London, which I'm not so keen on. So you got to get out of London to cycle.
Agreed.
So I thought, to make it easy, I've got it at home. And then if I'm near a gym and I'm traveling, then I can use that. A pool, I would have to figure out where I was going to go and swim. But because I've still got triathlon in my mind, at some stage, I will forget about the color of my hair and I will get on with swimming training. So yeah, I think it's probably needs to be what's the easiest thing for you to do if you're adding it in over and above, and something that you kind of don't mind.
Yeah, I love that. When I think about
I actually really like cross training, by the way.
I really like cross training as well.
It breaks it up. It gives your body a break. Just a bit of a change, of scenery.
Yeah, I like, there's sort of two parts of it is that, so I like to have my core running, and that's obviously the sort of focal, that there's a sort of a plan. That's the basis. Yeah. And again, in this current season of my life right now, particularly this 2026, the strength is a key part of that scaffold. Yes. And those two non-negotiable 45-minute sessions with the trainer. So those are in there. So we're starting to fill in the pieces. I'm doing 75 hard, as we've sort of talked about, which means you are trying to get the second workout in. So if I've already run, I want to do something different. So in that case, then going for a walk or going for a bike is, the bike is a nice thing to do 45 minutes. Yeah. I think in any cross training, I think having the ability to have something at home, I've got a Peloton, taking that Peloton to the UK. If ever I did an indoor game, I'd do the Zwift ride. I think it's so nice to be able to hop on. This morning is today's my rest day, and I knew I might go for a walk later, so I wanted to do something, and I feel I just wanted to move the body, so it was more active recovery. And also Cocodona was starting this morning, so I was I can just hop on my bike. I can I did a class. It was a 45-minute class, but I then put I actually put the show on. It was sort of the start of the race, and it was I actually feel better from recovery afterwards. In terms of, but for me, I do actually like the bike. Particularly I like it, the occasional, once a week I might do something with some intervals. And it's nice because it doesn't beat me up in the same way that running intervals would do. If I'm hammering the interval on the track or road, I'll feel pretty sore afterwards. The bike, not so much. But it really is it's almost this, it's how it fits in with life. So Zoe said for swimming, if swimming meant something that I would take me further away from the family, I wouldn't do it. And that's why right now I don't have a road bike. And in the UK, what's going to get me back on a road bike, it's because it's in Wales, it's going to be my brother-in-law because he likes to ride a bike. If we can go out once a week for a couple hour weekend bike ride, that's probably like what's going to get me out there. I'd love to have a Zwift ride at home that like I can do a 45 minutes or do whatever to like, particularly if it's like the weather is terrible Welsh weather, and I just want to get like some, a good session in. I think for me, the difference for swimming will be like, if it's a thing of like Zoe, of like, hey, you want to go swimming and we do something, I would totally make that work. I don't think it's going to be I think biking actually is really good for running. I think like the power development, I think it's obviously not impact. I think swimming is great. I think you get fit. I think you can get, lean and healthy. I don't think it's going to help you run faster, run an economy, but I think it's like additional aerobic. And then the final thing is like, I'm not sure about you. I like to learn. So like
I was just thinking this.
The cool thing about swimming for me would be, and I would, if we do it together, I'd love it if it was more like the Masters Club or somewhere, because like I know I have no form swimming. So I'd want to learn how to at least have slightly better swimming form so that I could actually be a bit more efficient. But I'm coming from such a low baseline. It will be so fun. I'm sure my learning curve will be fast and it'll be fun.
And actually my friend yesterday told me that she's got this new bike.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think also that she's buying all the kit and kitting out. It's like she's learning all the bike stuff, and she's going to ride with some friends in Richmond, but also from swimming, she's doing some swimming lessons. And so she's figuring out how to get better. I think for me, even though I'm a decent enough swimmer, like I'm not amazing, but I've got a reasonable style. When she said that, I thought, I wouldn't mind a few lessons. And actually, if there was a swim club near me and I could go and be in a class and train, there's not like any real pressure to be good because it's not my main sport.
Yes.
Might meet some people. Nice. Yeah, that kind of thing I think would make it cool. I think just going on my own to the gym and swimming up and down probably wouldn't. And I also like the bike from the point of view, like this week, I just rolled out of bed, had a coffee and a banana, got on my bike, watched YouTube. I like to watch triathlon and runners and people and stuff on YouTube and cycle in my living room, and my dog sits next to me, next to the fan. And watches me. And if I stop and sort of freewheel for a bit, that noise, he looks like he thinks, she's stopping. Does this mean she's getting off to take me for a walk?
Get back. No more freewheeling, Alice. Get back on the...
No, because he's waiting to go for a walk. So he thinks, this is it. She's done, So
this is so funny.
Anyway, I think
that was a good question. Thank you, Zoe. I love that question.
Great question.
I think it's cool for like anything when you think about like adding something else in. I do think about it's like the goal. Is it something social? It could be something. I love the thing when aligning with your family. Like that would be the thing. If Zoe wanted to swim, then I would make it. And it was me and Henry. Particularly if there was something like where like I swim with Henry or occupy Henry while while Zoe gets her laps in, and then we do something together afterwards, or then maybe like a little so like. I think there's some cool stuff to be had there. I feel like we're in a cool phase. Like I'm definitely like my mind is buzzing with Cocodona and with backyard ultra ideas, and now swimming. There's lots to keep. And
I've had a good chat with my coach, so maybe next week I'll come back and share what we think is going on, because I think there's some interesting, and maybe we even chat a little bit about anxiety and running and the nervous system stuff. So maybe thinking a little bit about that.
That's a great topic for next week.
And maybe share some of the sort of plans that I've got going forward. So looking forward to that. Love it. And listener questions, the more we have, the better.
Yeah, more listener questions, the better. I had a very sweet message from a friend who loved our Grand Canyon, the Grand Canyon excavate story.
Yeah, that was a great story.
But also, I said, this is our pod has now become his favorite podcast of the week, which I was like, good. I cannot believe it. I mean, Alice, I really did think that we might be like, however many episodes in we are now, just like with 5 listeners. And that was okay because we were just like us chatting. So the idea that some people are tuning in each week to actually listen to us.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Kind of awesome. So keep the questions coming. Awesome. Keep the comments coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.